Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce's Health and Wellness event today. We're going to go over information that's going to be important to you and to your family. But before we get to all that, I know that you probably talked to many of us over email, but I want to put a face to the name. Our team, of course, I'm Tina Cannon, the president and CEO of the Austin LGBT Chamber. On the call with us today is another staffer that you all know, love, and adore. That's Stephanie Pelletier. So you finally get to see a face with all those emails. Also want to take a minute to thank all of our sponsors for helping underwrite the work that we do at the Chamber to help provide the programming to our small, as we call them, mom and pop LGBT businesses in town. So always make sure that you take a look at who sponsors the organizations that you know and love, and make sure that when you are out shopping or doing business of commerce, that you're putting your money where your values are. So take a look at all of our sponsors and give them a thanks when you get a chance. Just a real quick, a little bit about us. We've been around since 1997. We're 24 years as the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We're the oldest and largest LGBT chamber in the state of Texas. We have sister chambers across the state that we work with on a daily, if not weekly basis. Last year, 2020 handed us a great deal of challenges, as it did everybody across the globe. But even then, we managed to still host over 90 different webinars and events to get messaging and information resources out to our members. And we are on task this year to have about 70 events already booked. Your chamber makes an impact. Some of the things that are probably important on this is that, again, that 90 plus webinars. 65,000 people searched our directory last year alone looking for LGBT businesses that are members of the chamber so that they can do transactions together. And we added 75 new businesses to the chamber last year alone. About 96% of those were the small businesses. So again, thank you to our sponsors for doing allowing us to do what we do and kind of helping us keep the lights on. So today I wanted to introduce our speaker for today, who is by far smarter than I am, so and better poised to be speaking on this topic. Dr. O, like the letter, comes to us from Sugar Land, Texas. He's a University of Texas at Austin graduate with BA in finance, as well as Texas Tech University Health Science School of Medicine. His emergency medical residency at the University of Texas Dell School of Medicine, and has been practicing emergency medicine for over 9 years. So I'm guessing you started when you were 12. And hails to us also from Signature Care, one of our delightful LGBT chamber partners. So Dr. O, I will let you take over and put your screens up and slides up on the screen as you need. I have to take a leave and go to another meeting, but I trust you'll be in the great hands of Stephanie and Rich on this call.
All right, well, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to speak. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Let's see here, and I can pull up my little PowerPoint. So yeah, thanks again for having me. It's really a pleasure to speak upon this subject, and I know I can speak for everyone at Signature Care and kind of all the ER physicians that all of us are really proud of the work that we're doing right now and taking part in this global effort to combat COVID. So I've been asked to speak on the vaccination and the rollouts and kind of what the vaccination is. So I've made a little presentation here just basically about what an mRNA vaccine is. And it's pretty interesting. The two ones that we're hearing about right now is the Pfizer and the Moderna. Both of them are what they call mRNA vaccines. So to kind of determine what are mRNA vaccines. So typically we had 4 traditional vaccine types. One is the live attenuated vaccine. And this is basically when they take a germ that causes a disease and they weaken it. And then typical vaccines in this category, the MMR, chickenpox, smallpox vaccines. Then you have your inactivated vaccines, which is basically a killed version of the virus. You'll see here flu, hep A, polio, rabies. The recombinant vaccines is when they take little bits and pieces of the virus that they kind of alter to trigger an immune response. And these we will find in your pneumonia, meningitis, hep B, pertussis, shingles vaccinations. And then finally, you'll have your toxoid vaccines. And these are basically when they take the toxins produced by the germs, and then they modify it to create an immune response in the body without actually harming the person. And then these you'll find in tetanus and diphtheria vaccines. So what makes mRNA vaccines so unique and so interesting is that really this is the first time that mRNA vaccines have ever been used in the past in history. The idea of an mRNA vaccine started about 30 years ago, and that's when all the research began. And again, this is the first time it's ever rolled out in human history, which is really cool. So the question is, what is an mRNA? So mRNA is a strand of DNA that is basically it's a strand of DNA that creates another strand of something called mRNA. And mRNA is a strand that is used to create proteins. So cells will replicate the DNA into an mRNA, which is a messenger RNA, and that's used to create a certain protein for the cell. So COVID is an mRNA vaccine. So one of the key features of what makes COVID the coronavirus is the fact that it has these spike proteins, the little red proteins around the actual virus itself. And this is what gives it its name. The corona is a crown of the spike proteins. And those red spike proteins are the key to the mRNA vaccine. The mRNA that's used in the COVID vaccine codes for those red spike proteins. So if you can imagine that the white dot is going to be the actual mRNA vaccine and the yellow Pac-Man is the immune cell of the human body, whenever we inject the mRNA vaccine inside somebody, the immune cells take up the mRNA vaccine or the mRNA, and they've modified it enough to where it'll trick the cell into actually producing these red spike proteins. So it's using your own body cells to create a piece of the COVID vaccine, of the COVID virus. And then this triggers an immune response, which then causes the body to produce antibodies to those spike proteins. And then if COVID should ever enter your system, we have this army of antibodies that will recognize the spike proteins and immediately attack it. And so this is when you create that so-called immunity that people will have once they have a full vaccination. So the two companies that have created it, you have the Pfizer and you have Moderna. And you have Moderna. And each of them require 2 separate doses. On the Pfizer side, you get your first dose at day 0, the second dose at right around day 17 and 21. They create this little 4-day grace period. And then you have your Moderna vaccine, which is about 24 to 28 days is when you require your second shot. Both of them are similarly effective. And the important thing here is that the vaccines are not interchangeable. So if you get the Pfizer vaccine on day 0, you can't get your Moderna. You need the second vaccine shot to be a Pfizer vaccine. And similarly for the Moderna. So the way that we are approaching the vaccine rollout is we have different phases. We're currently in phase 1A, and we're actually in phase 1B now. So 1A includes your first line defense, the healthcare providers, the first responders, including the police, fire, and EMS. Then you have the phase 1B. And this is the phase that we're currently in the process of rolling out. And this is the one where we're going to hopefully get all the high risk population. So anyone 65 and older, and anyone 16 and older that has some kind of comorbidity, some kind of disease process that can make them at high risk for getting complications from COVID. So cancer, kidney disease, COPD, heart conditions, obesity is one, pregnancy, sickle cell, diabetes. The phase 2 and 3, now this is after we're going to vaccinate our high-risk population. This is anticipated to roll out between sometime around April. And that focuses on just the general population. So side effects. So the most commonly reported side effects are going to be headaches, local pain at your injection site, body aches, fevers, and the feared one is going to be some kind of anaphylactic or allergic reaction. What they it If people have had reactions to vaccines before or anaphylaxis, they will ask you to be very careful and be observed for at least 15 minutes after your shot, or not take it at all. It kind of depends, and there's not enough data to determine who will develop an anaphylactic reaction to it. There have been some kind of zebra side effects, including like Guillain-Barré, and that hasn't been shown to be directly linked to the COVID vaccine. But basically, Guillain-Barré is like this neurologic condition. And then, so the vaccines that we're currently rolling out have been tested on those aged 16 and older. So we don't have a lot of data on anyone else. So the next phase of research is going to be kind of more the adolescent pediatric age. So 12 to 15-year-olds. And then after that phase of research, then they're going to hit the vaccine research on pregnant women, those less than 12 years old, those who have an immunocompromised state like HIV, cancer. They still recommend getting vaccinations if you're pregnant, but there's just not a lot of research on the safety of it yet. And that's kind of the extent of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain questions here. Let me stop my screen.
It looks like we have a couple questions from Brian. He would like to know if there's a rollout, like a timeline for the rollout phase 1B and the rest.
Yeah, so the rollout of 1B is actually happening now. It's a matter of logistics now. I think the issue is a lot of these websites, especially in Austin, that are starting their registration process. I think they've gotten so many hits that the websites are actually crashing. Yep. So it's a matter of logistics and how to get it done. But we're rolling out 1B right now. And again, that's I'll put that slide back up again. 65 and older and age 16 and older as well with complications or comorbidities. So hopefully, hopefully the logistics will be finished soon. But I know in other cities they've already started the 1B rollout. It's just a matter of how strong the infrastructure is. I know the major sites that are giving out vaccines are HEB, I know CVS, Tarrytown Pharmacy. Those are the three big ones in our area.
And for people who want to be on a list, like to know that they're scheduled for a vaccine, like what do you suggest for those of us who are not necessarily at risk or even over 65, but we do want to get on a calendar somewhere? Like where do we even start to look?
So I can send you a website that shows you which local pharmacies have a COVID-19 vaccine. I know that Tarrytown has an email waiting list that you put yourself on the list and they'll let you know whenever they have shots available. I know that in Houston, at least, I don't know if anyone has any links to Houston, but I know that if you're part of the Methodist system, they're actually sending out like invites to get your vaccination if you're
Okay.
within the Methodist system.
And we have, so someone who's immune compromised would need to go look at the link that you're about to give us, right? If they're wanting to get on the list. So Dr. Odo will send us a link. We'll upload a link here that we can use. We have another question. Is it healthy to have the flu shot and the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you recommend both?
Yeah, I think both are great vaccines to have. And there shouldn't be any reactions between those two.
Then Iris says other cities have done better with distribution. We are so aware.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, I don't think that doctors in Austin get to actually help with that. I think they just have to give the shots when they get the shots.
Right, right. And that's something that we need to work on. Again, it's all just a matter of logistics.
And then Dr. Ruby Rose would like you to kind of help dispel some of the myths that people are concerned with the vaccine, that it's attached to microchipping, things like that. Like, could you just give us from your perspective as a doctor, you know, why this is important and how it's, how do people like not pay attention to some of the stuff that's being said?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, you know, the danger of having too much information in the palm of your hand is that you can also get too much bad information too. And I think there's a lot of rumors that are spreading out there. You know, Bill Gates created the vaccine, or he created COVID and he created the vaccine at the same time to get money. Like, there's all these crazy conspiracy theories. I think it's important for people to kind of stick to the facts and stick to the science. And the science of it is that the vaccine does provide kind of a glimmer of hope for a normal future. I don't see any reason why we should believe that there's any conspiracy behind it. You know, speaking from a purely medical point of view, I think definitely the vaccine will provide protection and, again, just give us some hope for a normal future again.
And Catherine, I think it's Catherine, would like to know, what if you're unable to get that second dose on time?
And so that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. I know that the big thing in the new Biden administration is his major goal is to release all the vaccine, like all of our storage all at once. And the issue between that is there's just not enough research to know what happens with the delayed vaccine. And the reason why that's such a big deal, releasing all the vaccines all at once, is that for every one dose that you give, you need to have a second dose with it. So you know, there's not enough research to know what happens if you delay your second vaccination. And the issue with not having a second dose available to you is no one really knows what's going to happen. Some say that the first shot will give you a 50 to 70% immunity. But who knows what happens if you don't get the second shot? You know, will that immunity just slowly wane away, or what will happen then? So, you know, to go back to that question, there's just not enough research to know right now. Like, one, how long the vaccine lasts for.
Mhm.
We hope that it lasts for at least a year. That way it'll act like a flu vaccine where you get one every year. And two, we don't know what happens if you delay or miss your second dose.
And do you know, let's see, what about not knowing a timeline efficacy?
Like how long it takes after the shot to get immunity or antibodies? Is that the
Iris, is that what you're asking? Oh, okay. She said you already answered it.
what's that? Oh, okay.
Let's see. Rich is curious, if one has had a positive test, is the vaccine still going to be effective?
Yes, yeah, it will be, but I think there's recommendations here that if you have had active infection, you either need to wait for the recommended 14-day period or until symptoms have cleared. And if you've been treated with any kind of like monoclonal antibodies or the convalescent plasma, you need to wait at least 90 days after that infusion before you get the vaccine series.
I'm in.
I'm sorry?
Stephanie, can I chime in?
Absolutely.
Dr. O, my symptoms were only nasal congestion and cough, and my positive test was in November. I'm 1B, I'm 67, and I'm quite anxious to get this vaccine. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as long as you weren't treated with any of those, you know, monoclonal antibodies, the convalescent plasma, and November, yeah, you should be out of the window. So I think you're clear to take the vaccine
Okay, thank you.
as soon as they roll it out.
And then we have another question from Brian.
Where that is.
So is it recommended to get tested before getting the vaccine? Should you go get tested first and then get the vaccine?
No, I wouldn't recommend it. Obviously, if you're experiencing symptoms, you should. But if you're not, I don't think you need to get it tested before you take the vaccine.
And Lauren said, no, Signature Care at this time is not administering the vaccine. I believe Signature Care is partnering with HEB, correct?
Correct.
And being a part of that, if I'm see. Children, do you recommend vaccinating children? Is it going to be just kids over 18? What are you guys doing for the kids?
Yeah, so right now, there's no research on kids yet. All the research for the current vaccines have been done for people age 16 and older. And again, the next phase of research is going to be ages 12 to 15, and then anyone under 12 after that. So it'll be a little while before we find out the effects on children. So I think right now, I don't think they're recommending it for kids yet, just because we don't know what it's going to do to them.
And Ruby says that you guys are in the process of trying to help with the rollout on site. I guess you guys, Lauren would let us know if that happens so we can push it through to the members.
Okay. Oh, and back to that flu question. I think the recommendation is to wait 2 weeks after the flu vaccine, COVID vaccine.
Okay. And then Dr. Derek, would you make sure you send us that link that
Yeah.
has the information? You can do it right here in the chat if you want, so that the people on the webinar can use it.
Let me pull it up here real quick. I know I have it here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, let me join the chat here. Trying to figure out where's that chat button here? I can give you the link.
Should be down on the bottom. If you scroll down, you'll see where the button was that said screen share. Right next to it should say chat.
Okay.
Down on your bottom navigation. And if not, you can just have Lauren send it to me and I'll attach it to an email to everybody.
Here you go. All right, let me type that in real quick. So.
Well, I just want to say that was a great lecture, Dr. O. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Dr. Rose, for being here and helping.
Absolutely. Well, keep wearing your mask. Most of us here have gotten both our vaccinations, both doses, and we did fine with the side effects. And I think it's safe. I would get my whole family vaccinated if I could. But I'm obviously still wearing a mask, so keep wearing those masks and stay safe, social distance. Yeah, we're here for you if you need anything.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for helping us out again. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to email the chamber and we will get them over to the doctors at Signature Care. Thank you so much, Signature Care, for all that you've done for us this year, last year. We appreciate you guys so much. And I'll let Rich Siegel close us out and tell you a little bit about the committee.
So sorry to interrupt. My name is Brian. Stephanie So the link on the chat is not clickable, or you can't copy or paste it either. Would you be able to email it to us?
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you so much.
And it looked like, by the way, that it required a login.
Oh, hold on. Let me see here.
But we'll get all of that figured out for you. Dr. O, I want to express my deep appreciation to you for presenting your information on the vaccine to us. It's something that has been interesting from the time they started producing it. So thank you very much for your expertise. Dr. Rose, thank you very much as well. I want to thank everyone for the questions and comments that they submitted into the chat today so that we can learn a little bit more about the vaccine going forward. The Health and Wellness Committee of the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce meets every other month. Our next webinar is going to be in March, the second Wednesday in March, at which time we will discuss from a psychological and mental aspects, getting back into the swing of things if we're able to start doing that, but we'll have some experts who will guide us through that as well. And then we'll be discussing senior care in our May webinar. So just keep a lookout on the Chamber website for more information on both of those. And my sincere appreciation again to Lauren, to Dr. Rose, and to Dr. O for their help in facilitating this webinar that we did today.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm trying to get this to work for you guys. I think this should be it.